Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Jen, and this is a channel where witchcraft meets psychology. We talk about all the stuff that no one's really talking about, and honestly, I think it's stuff we all need to hear. So today we're going to be diving deep. We're going to talk about Saturn moving into Aries this coming week, which is massive. And I want to pair that with brand new psychology research that has just come out literally 2 days ago. I'm not even kidding. The timing is wild. I also want to touch on this year being a 1 year in numerology and what that means for all of your new projects that you'll be starting, because you're going to be starting new projects, and why it feels so freaking painful to be a beginner again. I really want to validate that experience because I don't think it's talked about enough. It is extremely painful on a psychological level. So, all right, let's get into it. So, February 13th or 14th, depending on your time zone, Saturn is leaving Pisces and entering Aries. And if you don't know astrology super well, let me just go out and say that this is a big deal. Saturn stays in a sign for about 2.5 years. So this isn't just a little blimp on the astrology world. This is a whole new era beginning. And Saturn has been in Pisces since March 2023. So if you think back to that time, what are these, last few years, couple years really felt like? For a lot of us, Saturn in Pisces has been about conclusions. Structures being dissolved or falling apart, boundaries getting really, really blurry, which has created a lot of exhaustion, a lot of collective exhaustion, a lot of spiritual bypassing, I would say. Pisces is a very spiritual sign. So it's giving this, I'll keep giving until I have nothing left kind of energy, if that resonates. So Pisces dissolves things. It's the ocean, it's boundless, and Saturn, who is all about structure and reality and limits, has been in a sign that doesn't really do limits. So it's just been a lot. It's been a lot. But now Saturn is moving into Aries, and Aries is fire, Aries is action, Aries is the I am, it's the warrior, courage, initiation. It is the part of you that says, let's fucking go. So Saturn, this slow, steady, disciplined, mature Saturn, is moving into a sign that wants to move really fast. And I think that's the whole lesson these next 2.5 years are going to be. How can we take courageous action without being reckless? How can we build something sustainable out of this fire that we have inside of us? Saturn in Aries is asking us to kind of grow up around our impulses. It's asking us to have mature courage. Not the kind of courage that's like, screw it, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do and I'll deal with the consequences later. But the kind of courage that says, I see the risks, I know this is going to be scary, and I'm going to do it anyway, but strategically, right? So here is, I think, where it's going to get tricky. Aries wants to move now. Aries is impatient. Aries is like, why are we waiting? Let's get started. Let's go. And Saturn says, hold on, let's do this right. So you're going to feel that kind of friction these next 2.5 years. You're going to feel the impulse to go, and then you're going to feel this other voice that's like, but wait, shouldn't we kind of plan this out? Shouldn't we make sure we're ready? And I think the answer is a little bit of both. Saturn in Aries isn't about never taking action. It's about taking action with your eyes open. It's about building the stamina to keep going when things get hard. It's about that long game of courage. Saturn is that long game. So you can't sprint a marathon, right? That's the saying everyone says. And I think that is so Saturn in Aries. I think that's what it's teaching us. And here's another huge piece of this. truth. Saturn is reality. Saturn is what is happening, not what we wish was happening, if that makes sense. And Aries is very direct, right? So Aries doesn't kind of sugarcoat things. Saturn in Aries is going to be asking us, can you tell the truth when it gets hard? Can you hear the truth when it hurts? This is very important. This is going to come up in relationships. This is going to come up in work. This is going to come up when you confront yourself this year, these coming couple years. Where have you been lying to yourself to avoid the discomfort inside? Where have you been saying what people want to hear instead of what's actually going on inside? Saturn in Aries says, the truth may hurt, but avoiding the truth is actually going to hurt more. And I have research to back this up, which we'll get into in just a second. But I just want to sit with that for a moment. On a collective level, I think we're going to see a lot of themes around autonomy, around self-determination, around people saying, I'm done waiting for permission to live my life. And, we're moving from the Pisces energy of we're all connected, we're all one, we're all flowing, right? Into this Aries energy of, but I'm still me. Like, I still have agency. I still get to choose this life. And I think that can feel really uncomfortable if we've been conditioned to put everyone else first. If we've been taught that, taking up space is selfish. So that's the astrology. Now let's talk a little bit about the psychology that I found. So I came across this research that was actually published January 21st of this year, so a little less than a month ago. And it talks about courage. So researchers at Virginia Tech looked at what makes someone capable of courageous decision making. And they found that courage is linked to a few key traits: resilience, emotional stability, and openness. And what really got me is they found that courage isn't something that you're just born with. It's something that you build inside of you. And you build it through action. So you do it by doing the scary thing, learning from it, and then doing another scary thing. And this is so Saturn in Aries. Saturn is the builder. Aries is the action. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly have courage. You develop it over time by showing up even when things are hard. And resilience, which is one of the biggest predictors of courage, resilience is the same thing. It's not a personality trait that you either have or you don't. It is a muscle that you strengthen. You get resilient by going through hard things and not giving up. So if you're feeling like you're scared right now, or you're feeling like, I'm not brave enough to do this, or I'm not strong enough, that's okay. That's normal. You're building that strength within. You're building that courage. Every time you take a step forward, even though you're scared, you are building that muscle. The next study that I found came out on February 5th, which is literally 2 days ago from when I'm recording this. And they studied couples who had shared relationship threatening information with each other. So like the hard stuff, right? The stuff that you don't want to say because you're afraid it's going to blow everything up. And what they found was being honest, even when the truth hurts, actually strengthens the relationship. So people who were more honest about what they needed or what bothered them experienced greater well-being in the relationship, and their partners did too. But the kicker, I think, is when people withheld the truth to protect their partner, actually created more damage long term. So the thing that you're afraid to say because you don't want to hurt someone, holding that in is probably hurting them more than just saying it. And I want to be really clear about this. This isn't about, being brutal. This isn't about word vomiting every thought that you have with no filter. That's kind of like Aries impulse, right? Just blurt it out and deal with the fallout later. Saturn in Aries is about thoughtful honesty, right? It's about saying the hard thing, but saying it with care. It's about timing, you know. It's about thinking, how can I communicate this truth that I have in a way that's actually going to land? And the truth may hurt in the moment, but it builds the trust and the strength of the relationship over time. So I think that's really beautiful and important for this Saturn in Aries. There's also another really interesting study that just came out in January as well about authenticity. And what they found is that when people were asked to describe their authentic self, they actually included more negative traits than when they were kind of describing their presented self, how they present themselves. So in other words, your real and authentic self, the one that, you are when no one's watching, isn't all sunshine and rainbows. And that's okay. Authenticity makes room for negativity. It makes room for your shadows. It makes room for the parts of you that aren't polished or perfect or Instagram ready, whatever you want to call it. And I think that ties back into, again, the Saturn in Aries, because Aries is about raw, unfiltered energy. And Saturn is about the actual physical reality. It's not the filtered version. It's not the highlighted reel, whatever that you're creating and redoing and doing and doing. It's the actual messy, complicated truth of who you actually are. So part of this work with Saturn and Aries is going to be, can you be brave enough to be real? Not just likable. Can you show up as your whole self with all your shadows and all that truth and trust that the right people will still be there? So, enough about psychology. I want to get into the numerology of this year. Yeah, let's get into it. So, quick crash course in numerology. We are in a universal 1 year in 2026. The number 1 is all about new beginnings. It's the seed, it's the spark, it's the I am. It's about stepping out as an individual and really, really claiming your own space. It's about saying, this is me and this is what I'm here to do. And that is so beautiful, but that is also so hard. Because when you step out as yourself, as your real self, not the version, people are used to, you risk being rejected, you risk being misunderstood, you risk being, not cared for, people not caring what you have to say. And that's really scary. There was research done last year in October, and they looked at what happens to people when they feel invisible. Now, this was particularly done in work settings, but I think it applies to anything that you're creating or putting out into this world. And what they found is that feeling invisible activates the same neural pathways in your brain as physical pain. Like your nervous system literally interprets being unseen as a threat, as rejection, as something is seriously, seriously wrong. So when people start something new, which they will do this year, you will probably do this year, whether it's a YouTube channel like me, this is brand new for me, a business, a creative project, a song, music, whatever it is, and no one's watching, no one's liking, no one's commenting, your brain is going to be reading that as actual physical pain. And I think that's why it's so hard to keep going. It's not about, the ego. It's not about wanting attention. It's about your nervous system telling you, this isn't safe, people aren't responding, you should probably stop. And so I think it's so important to hear this year, because I know so many people are going to be starting new things this year. And I think that pain just means that you're doing, something right. I don't think it means that something has gone wrong. I think it means that you are just at the very beginning. And everyone who has ever built anything meaningful has gone through this phase. The phase where you're speaking to no one, the phase where you're just like shouting out into the void. And tying this back into Saturn and Aries, I think, it's asking us, can you do it anyway? And I think that's so important, to be willing to be seen right now when you're starting something new. Because you never know who's watching. You never know who needs to see you try, even if you're being messy, even if you're imperfect, like me, even if you have no idea what you're doing. Someone out there is waiting to see if it's possible. And you, by stepping out and being brave enough to start, that's the proof that they need. And you might be, the only example they have, the only example that they get to witness. You might be the only person in their world who's doing the thing that they're afraid to do. So when you post that first video and you have 0 likes, or when you put out that new song, or when you launch, that thing that no one buys, when you show up, even though it feels like no one cares, you're modeling that courage for someone who's too scared to start. And that matters. It really, truly matters. Even if you never even see the impact that you make, even if they never approach you and tell you that personally. And I think, that brings us back to everything we've been talking about this astrology and about this numerology and about this energy that's within the collective right now. Starting something new requires you to be vulnerable. It requires you to be a beginner. It requires you to kind of suck at something in public for everyone to see. And our culture doesn't really celebrate that. Our culture celebrates that finished, shiny product, that expert, that person who's already made it, has 1 million followers, whatever. But the beginning, that awkward, clunky, I have no idea what I'm doing face, that's where the real courage truly is. You have to be willing to be seen before you're good. You have to be willing to be seen when no one cares. And that's the work of Saturn and Aries. That's the work of the 1 year, like I've been saying. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about showing up even when, your hands are shaking. It's about posting that thing even though, it's not your best work yet. It will get there, because the only way it's going to get better is if you start. And the only way to start is to be willing to suck. Because I know these videos aren't the best, they're my first, and I get it, and it's going to be hard. And I just want to validate anyone that's on this journey, how hard it really is. Anyone that's starting something new, because I think sometimes, especially in spiritual spaces, we're kind of told that, just trust the process, or the universe always has your back, right? I'm sure we've all heard that. And while that's true, it doesn't make this emotional reality any easier. It hurts to feel invisible physically. Physical pain is what our brains are feeling. It hurts to put your heart into something and hear crickets. It hurts to watch other people blow up when you're still struggling to get 10 views. And you're allowed to feel that. You're allowed to feel frustrated, and you're allowed to wonder if it's all worth it. But I'm here to tell you, it is. Not because you're going to be famous, or not because you're guaranteed success, but because the act of creating, the act of showing up, and the act of being brave enough to start something new, that changes you on such a deep level. And it changes the people who are watching, even if you can't see them yet. So here is what Saturn and Aries, bringing it back once again, is asking us over the next 2.5 years. Can you be courageous without being reckless? Can you tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable? Can you keep going when no one's watching? Can you do the thing that matters to you but not receive that validation, right? Can you be seen as a beginner again? The work itself is going to be the validation, not the likes, not the views, not the applause, not, any of that. It's going to be the fact that you showed up, the fact that you tried, the fact that you were brave enough to start. That's the win. I'm going to leave you with some questions that you can journal about or just think about. I'll link them down below as well. But where are you avoiding the truth because you're scared of the consequences? Where do you need to speak up, even if your voice shakes a little? What are you not starting because you're afraid of feeling invisible? Are you motivated by external validation or internal purpose? Those are the questions I think we should be asking ourselves right now. This is an extremely powerful time. Saturn doesn't move into a new sign very often, and when it does, it sets the tone for the next 2.5, 3 years. So let this be a permission slip. Start the thing. Say the truth. Be seen, even if you're scared. You're not alone in this, and the courage that you're building right now, it's going to carry you so much further than you can possibly imagine. I know a lot of us are going to be creating and stepping out into the world for the very first time, and I know it's going to be scary. Let's hold each other up. Let's support each other. We got this. All right, that's it for today. If this resonated, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're starting new. I want to hype you up as well. I want all of us to hype each other up. We're all in this together. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next week.